Ag, it's probably a big part of their, it is.
Month of sale.
It can be me.
Nice, Steve.
Can they track that, those individual stores?
I bet Chris is good.
Sounds good.
That's good for him.
You don't have to. Based on the measure.
Yeah.
You know, just. Trying to-
It disappeared before the heat was done. It takes that, your ice cream is melting.
JJ, morning, Roger.
That's it, but. I know you.
Sounds good. Yeah. That will As long as.
But I will
That's
ask,
the story. My wife, you know, have big groceries, she'll have to sign.
not here.
Yeah. We'll take her off.
Yeah, I'll do the regular, okay.
Yeah.
But I will ask that question. You like. Yeah, what's the rhetoric?
Yeah.
So ready to do that, I just want, that's. I don't know this first name. But is.
Mass speak Roger, JJ. All right.
And Reeves.
And Reeves.
No, Reeves. The other kids, all the Napa owner.
He is not able to be.
Got a family thing going on today.
Thanks. you.
All right. 10 o'clock, we'll call a meeting order and rise for the pledge. That thought.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome, everyone. Josh Moore has an excused absence today, so as vice chair, I'm sitting in for him. And now it's time for public forum. Anybody that wants to speak? State your full name, address in 3 minutes. You want to speak? Go ahead. State your name and
Glenn Slottick. I live at 73261 Markville Road, Sandstone, Minnesota. Don't know what the zip code is off my head yet, but I'll learn it. I would like to know what you can do with your computer system to update it into more of a modern system. So Kelly can let people like me who buy a property next door to combine these properties, like people that like me or not like me that come buy properties right adjacent next door that don't have a section line between them two properties can. Okay, so it's more of a, there's a little thing here in Pine County that makes their computer system with not enough little boxes there to do enough entries to do stuff. It's a complicated little process. Now, there is a secondary way of doing such, and she's worked with this to help me out, but I have to somewhat, I'll just say in my words, sort of swore on blood oath that I will never, Glenn Slottick will never sell my properties or resplit these again. Whereas the guy next to me who does the same thing that don't have a section line, he don't need to sign or do anything special. He can just combine his, so he doesn't have to pay 2 garbage fees and so on. I think that's understood. Is that somewhat clear? I'm asking what can be done to your computer system to update it to modern stuff so it can be more equal. Is this like a $200 extra tax for me per year for not being able to do that? I don't like to spend taxes. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Glenn. Anyone else? Anybody online? No, one online. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. We have some additions. For regular item 2A, we have just some additional information to go with that, and we're gonna have a discussion on that, clarify some issues. Then item and regular agenda, item number 6, is additional information, which is a PowerPoint on the audit financial statements. And then revisions to the agenda are, we're gonna move Health and Human Services Committee update from the commissioner updates and place it as regular agenda item 2.1. And then we're going to remove regular agenda item number 8 from the discussion. And with that, I will look for a motion.
I'll move that with, move the agenda with the changes. I can second that.
JJ. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we'll move on to the minutes of the October 7th, 2025 regular county board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll move that.
Now, motion. Look for a second. Roger Nelson, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Acknowledge minutes of boards, committee and correspondence and Board of Peace Officer Standards and Training for October 2nd, 2025. I'll move that.
Second.
Who was the second? Roger second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Consent items, you've had them in front of you for a while and had a chance to read them.
I'll move it. Second.
Okay. Hal on motion, second JJ. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think Roger seconded that, didn't he?
Oh, Roger
Yeah, I
did?
did.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Got that, Deb? I mean, my mistake. Okay, we'll move to the regular agenda. Recognition of retirement of highway maintenance worker Jim Fusney, effective October 31st, 2025, with over 20 years of service of Pine.
Well, we want to recognize Jim. 20 years. He's been a great employee. Showed up when called. He's kept the Willow River District roads in great shape. Don't get too many complaints up there. So we're gonna miss you, Jim. We really appreciate your time. And for those that don't know, he's quite the musician. But he tells me his band is no longer up and running, but
Oh, no.
and he's pretty excited to not plow snow this winter. Want to get a picture over here, Jim? We got this clock, your service, to find out. Here, let's get a picture. Thank you. Thank you for all the service. Work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Jim. Yeah. Thanks, sir. Yep.
Good luck to you. Okay, we'll move on to personal committee report. Which that'll be me because I'm on that committee. So I'll start with the administration and I think we'll just grab that one and have that discussion now, and then I'll move on after that. So the administration, we don't have a discussion as requested regarding the parameters of the 2-month backfill waiting period. And I'll just kind of explain what happened. So when we're in personnel committee, some of the positions take more than 2 months to recruit. So I mentioned, and I was confused. So what I thought, well, couldn't we just start recruiting and it would fill the 2 month for some positions? And that's, I don't know if that's the right intent, what you're looking for, what we're looking for as a board. Do we want to? Do we want to not do that and see if the department can get along without that position for 2 months and see if it, does it give us something to look at and see if we need to make some changes? So that's kind of why I want to bring it forward. So how you want us to deal with that at personnel? So,
Yeah.
and then Kelly, I think you can take. that.
Yeah. So I think kind of the question at hand is, I think we all recognize the 2-month waiting period, but when does that start? Does that 2-month waiting period start at their date of last employment, or does it start at a personnel committee where their resignation was acknowledged? And those two differences get you a very different result. And so I have tried to lay out what that would look like. And so I use just a case study scenario of an employee gives their 2-week notice on September 10th and their last day is September 24th. Okay, so if we're looking at this, prior to the 2-month wait, when that person resigned, we would immediately post it as long as the position was budgeted and there was no changes that needed to happen. So things got moving very quickly. And then in the back end, we had kind of the pieces that had to happen, that it went to the next personnel committee and then the backfill went to the next county board. So that would have been in mid-October. And then all along, the hiring process has been in process. And so then typically we would be hiring a new person November 4th at the earliest. And so that's what it looked like previously. But now we have this 2-month wait. And so then that question comes in of when do we start the clock on that 2-month wait? So option 1 could be, it starts with the personnel committees. So we have 2 months of personnel committees that we wait. So in option 1 would be our same person resigned September 10th, with their last day September 24th, but the clock's not starting yet on the 2 months. The 2 months now starts at step number 2, when we go to that personnel committee meeting and get their resignation acknowledged, and then the county board acknowledges it that following Tuesday. So in this option, that 2-month wait period wouldn't be starting until about October 21st. And then 2 months after that personnel committee meeting would be when the department could go back and ask for a backfill, which would be December 8th, would be 2 months. And then the recruitment wouldn't start until, of course, it's confirmed by the county board on December 15th. And so then we would start recruitment starting December 15th, and probably we would be hiring someone at the January 20th meeting. So that is if you're starting that 2-month wait period between personnel meetings. Or option 2 would be if you're starting it with their last day of employment. So that one is September 24th is this person's last day. We take it to the next personnel committee, so same October dates like usual, but keeping in mind that 2 months from September 24th is November 24th. So then it would be going to personnel a month earlier, saying, it's been 2 months since their last day. Can we backfill starting on November 24th? And so then it essentially moves everything up 1 month from what if we looked at between personnel meetings, or if we started with the person's last day. It's interesting because this policy was only through the end of the year. And so to agonize over it so much is a little bit, I don't know. And it's interesting because depending on how it works out, I mean, you're going to have people who were not even hiring till even in the new year once the policy's over.
Well, I think to me, and that's why I think we have the waiver part in there is like, for an example, social services, let's say that we did one and they're sitting with one, and then there's another movement within that, like the eligibility group. So then you end up with another opening. So then you're gonna end up with 2 openings, and then who's gonna do the work too. So we're just trying to figure out, we can always do a manual waiver, explain it at a time, and do it that way, but we're trying to figure out how we can have it smoother.
And just so
And
everybody's
I like
clear.
the idea. How it's going, but so how do you want us to, how should we operate?
Yeah, so everybody's clear, when does that 2 month actually
Yeah.
length?
Yeah.
Because we had that discussion of, should I be coming back to this meeting? Should I go to that meeting?
Chair.
Go ahead, yeah.
Well, maybe as the
sort of the person who pushed this forward to start with. I think my thought was this option two aspect of it. Because when I'm just looking at the timelines, you know, if under the normal process, everything, you know, working smoothly, we were at a month and a half. Under option two, you're looking at same thing, but said a month and a half, it's 3.5. You know, so for me, option two really fits more with the you know, the original idea perhaps. But you know, we can do whatever we want. And I was gonna mention this is only till the end of the year. And at the end of the year, we evaluate, do we want to continue this? Do we want to tweak it more? Do we not want to do anything? But we're gonna have to make some sort of conscious decision, you know, come the end of the year of what's gonna happen next year. So I say we don't have to decide that now, but we need to be thinking about that as
Well,
well.
I don't mind the concept of this at all. Just so we just know how we want to run it. And I agree with it. It's always good for us to look at what we're doing as a county. It kind of makes us push a little deeper, you know, and I'm okay with that. And if it's a point where we're gonna waive it, we would waive it anyway. It's kind of where I sit. If we prove we need that position now because the work is there and can't do anything about that. So I think the waiver would still work. We just want one system to kind of operate on it. I'm fine with two, whatever we decide as a board, so. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I kind of thought we were doing option two.
Okay,
I mean, I guess I never,
yeah.
sometimes you don't think of all the unintended consequences. But if the whole idea is to give us pause to stop and think, is this really the right thing? Is there another thing we should be doing? It gives us that amount of time to think about it. I do empathize with positions like this one that arose. And I don't know under any circumstances that we would have got somebody hired to help with in time to help with open enrollment. Would we?
Not at this point.
And at this point, the timing is off.
Because
Not off, but
the open enrollment period, but actually a majority of the work happens after the open enrollment period of making sure we have everybody's correct papers and getting it into the payroll system and to those companies. So
Yeah.
yes, we're not gonna have somebody on board by October 31st for the HR generalist position, but
yeah,
hopefully we'd have somebody in there to help with some of the paperwork
yeah.
that has to happen.
That's a real critical time for everybody
Mhm.
that is on board at Pine County, so you know.
JJ, do you have any comments?
Not right now. I guess I kind of see things the way Roger does and the way this whole thing started. There's other things we could talk about also. When it comes to employees, when it comes to the amount of employees that still don't even come to work due to COVID. But there's 73 of them that don't even come into any facility. There's a lot to talk about. Letters that commissioners get sent to their homes over resignations due to some conflict in the workplace that needs to be talked about. So, a whole bunch to talk about.
We're talking about the onboarding process now, so I get that.
I agree with how Roger presented this. And I agree with Roger so far, what he's saying. Number two.
Do you want to do consensus or you want to vote?
Consensus.
Yeah, I think a consensus is fine. because
Okay. We'll
You
go.
already decided you were doing this, but we wanted to make sure how we were carrying it out.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Thank you for the time there on that. Okay, Public
Mr.
Works.
Chair, I do have to respond to JJ if I could, because the 73 people do go to work every day. They work hard every day. They are supervised by some of the best supervisors in the Midwest. And I take exception to saying they don't come to work.
Okay, my response to that is from everything I understand, they weren't hired as work at home employees. Something happened called COVID. Everybody else that works for a government entity seems to be working through this and bringing them back to work. And we still have a task at hand to figure out why 34 people are resigning and leaving. As you say, such a good place to work with wonderful supervisors and everything. We still have that task to figure out.
That's
We all got the letters.
yeah, I've gotten letters and over the 19 years I've been on the board, I've gotten a letter from, I would guess every department.
Yeah, but in 19 years, it just seems like maybe a person should look at it a little differently.
Well, that's your opinion.
Yes, it is.
All right. We'll move on to Public Works. So we acknowledge the retirement of maintenance worker Jim Busey effective October 31st, 2025. Consider the backfill of this position as well as any subsequent vacancies resulting from those transfers will be requested at a later date. Acknowledge the transfer of highway maintenance mechanic Jeremy Lemons to the vacant highway maintenance worker position effective October 22nd, 2025. And consider the backfill of the highway maintenance mechanic position as well as any subsequent vacancies resulting from promotions or lateral transfers will be requested at a later date. In probation, we acknowledge the resignation of senior agent Madison Peterson effective October 3rd, 2025. And consider approval to waive the 2-month waiting period for backfill of this position due to the lengthy recruitment and the training process and the critical nature of the role supervising high-risk clients. Sheriff's Office Jail. Ratify the separation of probationary corrections officer Sam Schmidbauer effective October 1st, 2025. Consider approval to waive the 2-month waiting period for the backfill due to lengthy recruitment and training processes and overtime costs incurred by maintenance required staffing levels. I want to make a comment here on that one. There are 7 part-timers who sit in a pool for the jail. So it's a full complement of part-timers. So for me, I was asked that question to see if it could reasonably fill the positions for a 2-month period. However, I know DOC, the State Department of Corrections, you have to have a minimum number of jailers for the number of beds in a jail. But if it gives us time to look at that, I'm just putting that information out there. So if you want to deal with that one separate, we can. Health and Human Services, I'll move on. Approve the elimination of licensed independent clinical social worker position by December 31st, 2025 due to budget concerns. Acknowledge the vacant front desk office support specialist position due to internal promotion and recommended indefinitely pausing the North Pine Government Center office support specialist position for further evaluation by Health and Human Services Committee. Acknowledge the resignation of eligibility worker Kara Springer effective October 7th, 2025, and consider approval to waive the 2-month waiting period for backfill due to this being the second vacancy in the financial assistance unit. And they request the waiver of the waiting period is for one of the 2 vacant positions. The request for the backfill of the remaining position will be at a later date. So I will, if you want me to break those out separate, I can, but I'm going to move them as a group. And if you want to break one out, we'll do it. So I'll make a motion to approve those.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Here.
Yes.
Maybe my comment is, you know, we just talked about our policy.
Yep.
And I get it, you know, that there are points where we have exceptions. You know, but when I start looking at this list, it looks like there's a lot of exceptions. You know, it seems like it's more the exception rather than the rule. That being said, I recognize that some of these positions, like, for example, Health and Human Services number 3, we have a pretty small unit to start with.
Yeah.
And we're already down 1. And to be down 2 in a unit of, I think, 5, that becomes, you know, I think it's 5, that becomes kind of critical. On the other hand, if we go back to it would be probation part C. You know, I don't know, it talks about a lengthy recruitment and training process. And I get that in some of these specialty areas, it is long, but can you, you know, we're asking for a waiver. So from the policy. So I was wondering if I could get a little more information on how long that training period and recruitment period actually is. Harry, that's possible.
Good morning, Terry Fawcett, Pine County Probation Director. Yeah, I was just talking to Jackie pre-meeting about this a little bit. If it was approved today and had the good fortune of getting posted by Friday, it'd be about a 3-week posting period. We're looking at, it'd be about a 3-month period just to hopefully get somebody in the door. And then it's a high risk position. That's the big part for me is this is the highest risk people in our department. So this includes multiple time DWI offenders, domestic abusers that have to be seen a certain amount of time per supervision standards. And which, by the way, all those things are tied into funding from the Department of Corrections as well. And so to have that position down presents a challenge. The person who just left the position, for example, was 11 months into her position. She didn't know everything by the time she left here. I encouraged her to leave, to be honest with you, Commissioner, because I was concerned about the budget. And she had an opportunity to go back to where she interned from. And so I think that's what it comes down to is we do risk assessments on clients. And if you assess as the highest risk, you have to be seen X amount of times, including in the community, which is very labor intensive. And on top of that, we have a 4-phase intensive supervision probation component, which is separate from high risk. Some of them are one and the same, but these are your 3-4 time DWI offenders that don't rise to the felony level. Some of them have to be seen weekly rather than twice a month. They have to be seen weekly in the community. So there's a lot of moving parts that go along with having to see them, which includes in the evenings and weekends with that population. So that's the biggest part, and it's the most difficult to train. We always talk to the department and say, does anybody want to move into this position before we post, right? Nobody wants to move in there, right? Because it's hard, it's labor intensive. It's a difficult position to work. We've had the good fortune in Pine that we've had Amber Chase in there for 15 years, who loves to do that high risk work, but one person to do it is a challenge at best.
Mr. Chair, before you leave, Terry. If, what do you do, like, if you get a big workload, and what if you do, what do you do if somebody unfortunately goes home ill, goes home sick? We have all these different leaves now that are.
Yep.
Can you farm out any of this work to another county? Do you work with other counties that could pick up some of the slack, so to speak?
Good question, Commissioner. Back in the day, they used to have what they would call contract PSI writers, pre-sentence investigation writers. For that very reason, the Department of Corrections had more work than they had people. So people would pick up extra money by writing pre-sentence investigation. That model doesn't exist, to my knowledge, anymore. You move work around within the department. My department, agent-wise, if you counted me, is 8. And so you have 8 doing all the work, and if one's gone, or if one goes out on leave, which will happen after the first of the year, then there's more challenges. The domestic abusers I mentioned, for example, most of them assess out as medium risk, right? Which means you technically only have to see them once a month. But they're very dangerous people. Then we have the pretrial caseload on top of that, which are people that are, a lot of those are pending felons. But once they're sentenced, they get seen by the Department of Corrections people. Those are kidnappers. Those are crim sex people. Those are very dangerous people in the community that have to be seen by somebody. And then on top of, so to your point, on top of that, we have to do bail studies every day for somebody who's in custody. And then we have to do pre-sentence investigations to make recommendations to the court on what this person should be on probation for, and then supervising them accordingly. And then we have to do the real work, which is called cognitive skills, which is evening classes with these people. And all of those things are required by the Department of Corrections as well now going forward, which is again tied into funding. So it's a balance. It's moving work around. When somebody calls out sick, somebody has to come in and do that work. We have that going on today, where we have an agent that's in the school. Somebody's supposed to come in. If somebody comes in, one of their partners has to see that person in the office. Just how it works.
Welcome. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I made a motion to approve.
I seconded it.
Yeah, for a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Opposed?
Opposed?
I didn't hear anybody opposed.
Okay. Motion carried. Nobody opposed.
No.
All right, we'll move on. 2.1 is going to be a HH, Health and Human Services Committee update. Steve,
Okay.
take that.
We met and a lot of our discussion at the meeting revolved around the position that we call the front desk here in Sandstone. That person that has been sitting there took a promotion within the department. So that position is vacant. So after a lot of discussion and some really good intelligence gathering from the staff at HHS, we are making a recommendation that we leave that front desk seat open. Now, what that means is it's a change. It means that when somebody walks in the door, they won't be able to walk in the door anymore because the front door will be locked because there won't be anybody here to greet people as they come in. So if a person's gonna come in and needs to get paperwork to get filled out, they will have boxes like we had set up during COVID when the doors were locked, and they would get their information, they would fill it out and put it in the Dropbox. We think that we can make this work. It's about making choices. We can fill that position and go on about business the way business has always gone on for the last 20 years or 50 years. Or we can take this opportunity to try something different. And the trying something different is gonna perhaps be painful for some people in the beginning, but perhaps with technology that we have available in this world and with some reassignments of people, we will be able to do a better job than we're doing now with clients. We would take the savings from that position and and put it back into people in the financial assistance office and maybe reorganize some people there. There's a lot of balls in the area, but we would spend probably the same or less money, but have the same amount of people, because those people that we would hire would be at a higher grade level, but the reimbursement rate for the work they do is considerably higher. And so it's always a risk to do something different than we've done in the past. If the worst thing that happens is it absolutely doesn't work and our phones are melting down, we'll have to, it will be constantly assessed. We have the phone calls that this office receives will all go to the main office in Pine City. And a little gal down there named Jenna will answer those calls. She'll be busy answering calls because they get about, I think, 4,000 a year here and 7,000 down there. So she'll be talking to 11,000, 12,000 people instead of. But as changes are coming down the pike in Medicaid and in SNAP, we're going to need more back office support. There's just no question in my mind that we can't do it the way we've been doing it. We need more help. So I think it's one of those things that we're never gonna know if we can do something different if we don't do something different. Is that a fair assessment, Matt?
Yeah, and I think can I add something?
Sure.
Nobody's gonna be missed. I was so worried about that. But most of it's a call now, and then most people just drop their paperwork anyway. The forms get picked up, they fill them out. If they have questions, a lot of it happens. But there's always some people there's always the smart personalities that walk in, I don't quite get this, but they can do that over the phone just like they did all through COVID. And if something does happen, there is a way they can call and someone can make an appointment and meet them here. Because there's staff here, it's just they're working. There's just nobody in the front to say, well, we'll have to figure out a time when we can schedule it or whatever. Which that's the work, right? And I think we can do that pretty easy.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So there won't be if somebody does want to walk, let's just say they're meeting a veteran meeting or has a question. Comes to the door.
The door would be locked.
Will
Phone
they?
number will be right there.
Oh, okay, so there will be,
The
there
phone
will be
number
a
will
way
be,
to,
yep, and then it'll be just like, that's a good question, Roger, because it's in my mind, but it's clear in my mind because it just happened to me. I had to get a new retiree ID card for the military. So I got to go to the St. Paul Armory to do this. So I go down there, the door's locked. And I go, oh, they told me to be here at 1, the door's locked up. And then I look and there's the phone number. So I call and here comes the guy out of the office. You Steve? Yep. Okay. We'll go in the office. That's how I envision that portion would work. Is it different? Yes, it is different, but it does work. And
and it will be unlocked like our public meeting.
yeah, yes, and that, I think we got Cass sitting there. She gets of all the meetings that take place in this room. I don't know if Debbie's on that alert roster too, but there are several people that get alerted that will know that they got to go push the unlock button on that for Tuesday's meeting on the third Wednesday or Tuesday of the month. or whenever anybody else has a meeting scheduled
And
here.
if the movement does happen, even some of Patrick's staff is gonna come up here too.
All those balls are still in the air.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll let staff and the personnel committee work on those, massage out those areas that we need to re-resource. But you know, when I first heard the plan, I was like, oh, geez, I don't know about that. And then the more I thought about it, the more especially last night, I sat down and I wrote out what I remembered from the meeting, and it really started making more sense. And so I think staff has some good ideas of how they can make this work, and I think we should. They're trying to work with us within our parameters of keeping our budget low. We know we're gonna have to make changes.
Yeah, my initial worry was like, no way, what if someone comes in and they, I need some. That's there too, they'll be able to meet that.
Well, I applaud you guys for staff for working, taking on this challenge. It is different, and recognizing the budget needs that we have and still being able to work within that. I say, thanks. And this is really, good effort on your part. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Roger. The other part of the meeting, if somebody else has questions, I don't know, JJ, is that making somewhat sense? But then we talked about the changes in the federal programs. Even without the shutdown, there are changes coming to SNAP and Medicaid, especially in MFIP and such. And if Becky could probably come up and do a way better job of explaining those than I could, but I just know that all of those programs touch a lot of people in Pine County. I believe there are 1,440 cases.
Families, yeah.
Families of SNAP. So if you extrapolate that out, that's probably 3,000 people.
If it's okay to go through the numbers and statistics,
Yeah.
that may be helpful to the conversation here. And so yesterday at our meeting, we also spoke about the federal government shutdown. Just thought it would be helpful to provide an update to the Pine County Board, to the general public, just so people know the number of cases, the number of people being potentially impacted, and really looking at what we know and what we don't know and how we're trying to keep people informed of changes. So you're going to hear a lot in this presentation about SNAP and WIC, MFIP, and Medicaid. So we're going to start with SNAP. So SNAP stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We have over 400 cases open in Pine County right now. And so kudos to the eligibility worker team. Most of them work from home and they do a fantastic job keeping up with the work here. And I'm really proud of them. SNAP provides food support for individuals with low incomes. So it's based on income and household size. If the federal government shutdown continues, we have been giving messaging that no food benefits will be issued in November. So this will impact your low income households, local businesses, and food pantries. And the amount of benefit varies based on the individual or household's income and the household size. This is data that we received from DCYF back in July with all the changes of who is on SNAP in the state of Minnesota. So you can see here the biggest portion of people who receive benefits from SNAP are children and adults with children, seniors, adult with a disability, and then you have other adults working and not working. So that's the makeup of the people that we are serving across the state. WIC stands for Women, Infants, and Children. That's run out of our Public Health Department. There's a WIC office here in Sandstone. There's a WIC office down in Pine City. The WIC nurses and the WIC team do a phenomenal job in Pine County. We had 635 participants in August. The average monthly count for participants this year is 615. So these are pregnant moms, new moms, and young children. What we know is that we are receiving messages that funding is secured through mid-November for WIC. After that, it's unknown if funding will continue. What we are encouraging people to do is to stay in contact with us, call with any questions. Make sure to look at your mobile WIC app for updates. MFIP. MFIP stands for the Minnesota Family Investment Program. It provides cash and food benefits for families with dependent children who have low income and limited assets. We have 97 cases in Pine. These individuals or these households are going to be hit hard if the government shutdown continues because of our aging systems. The cash portion and the food portion can't be differentiated, so they're going to be a double whammy, so to speak, for those households. We did receive messaging last week, and looking at the federal government website, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services explained that they will have sufficient funding for Medicaid, also known as medical assistance, MA, through the first quarter of federal fiscal year 2026. The first quarter of federal fiscal year 2026 has already started. So that means we know that there's likely to be funding through the end of December of this year. After that, it's unknown. The link to the website is there if people want to look that up. We did some checking on how many medical assistance cases we have here in the financial assistance team. Again, kudos to that team. They work hard. Most of them work from home. They do a phenomenal job here. You can see what they are doing. So we have 5,281 people on MA. That's on our MEDS team. Some people call that MNsure. And then on the Maxis team, as of 8:03 this morning, 1,533 cases. So that was numbers this morning. That should read cases, not people. We are encouraging people to check our website for more information. That's where we're gonna funnel people. We also have the Pine County Connect website, which also has links to other food resources, food shelves in the area. I have been in contact with Family Pathways, which serves Pine County and Pine City and Sandstone, and then have been in touch with school contacts just to apprise them of the situation, let them know that their backpack program numbers may go up, and if they have pantries within the school system, they may also be more heavily utilized in the coming month if the shutdown continues. That's what I have for an update.
Thanks, Becky.
Mr. Chair? With the statistics given, I guess I'm just curious as to, you feel that it's the federal government shutdown is what caused our problems to Pine County? I mean, 100%?
I'm just saying the federal government shutdown has an impact to the people in Pine County. If the federal government shutdown continues, SNAP will be the first program affected, WIC may be affected, Medicaid may be affected, et cetera.
Yeah, Congress is working on it. There's a letter.
They are.
Yep, there's a letter that says and highlights faulty decisions by the Walz administration that have undermined the program integrity, placed unnecessary burdens on counties, that'd be us, and squandered taxpayer dollars intended to serve vulnerable additions and families. It goes on and on. I just wanted to have an equal response of what you're saying so people can have an opportunity to know that Congress is working on it and it's not solely based on the federal government. It's believed that things could have been jockeyed a little differently in St. Paul with what we have down there. And unfortunately, we suffered.
Yeah, and I've given presentations on some of the state laws that are coming down that are going to have a huge impact too, that we spoke about last month with MAFPA CWDA. So there are lots of forces at play that are really going to make the work at Health and Human Services very difficult the next couple of years, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Yeah. Well, so that was our meeting yesterday. Health Services.
The thing Becky touched on, just briefly that we heard also at AMC last Friday was the system that our people work with. We've did a great job of getting the money set aside for SSIS. And that money they're working on fixing that system. The other system is called Maxis. And one of the issues with that is being able to online, say, SNAP benefits from other things that they work with. Because they're an integral part of that computer system, and that computer system is ancient. And I think, JJ, that's where some of the rub comes between the federal government and the state government is the state government has not seized the opportunity to upgrade those systems so that our county workers have the opportunity to quickly do the work that they need to do. And there is, at this time, unless they in the last few hours have not solved a workaround to give to our financial workers to pull out the part they need to pull out. So that's very frustrating to me and to every person that works in our HHS department.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Human Resources Generalist position, and consider the acknowledgement of resignation, Human Resources Generalist Jessica Blesner, effective October 31st, 2025. And consider the approval to waive the 2-month waiting period for backfill due to open enrollment workload and on the department lengthy recruitment and training process.
Jackie.
Hi, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. I'm Jackie Coivisto, Human Resources Director. And first of all, acknowledging Jessica's moving on. She's been a model employee who will be greatly missed. She's going on to be a full-time recruiter. She's born to do that. So while we will feel her absence, I'm very excited and proud of her going forward. I'm here to ask that we give some thought to waiving the 2-month period for filling the position. And it's not, open enrollment is a large part of it. While open enrollment really lasts into at least the first week of December, because not only are we, we're helping people with their online enrollment, but then we have to process it all. And it involves touching almost 300 enrollments. Even though, we have a great computer system, but there's human aspects of it. We make a lot of phone calls that start with, did you really want to terminate your $300,000 life insurance policy? And we're hearing, oh no, I'm not sure how that happened. So there's a lot of service. There's a lot of work that goes into the enrollment. And then after the fact, we're preparing extensive reports to pass on to the insurance companies to make sure that the enrollment is accurate and they get all the ID cards out by the first of the year. So there's really a lot that goes into it. There's also, we're busy with negotiations for 5 union contracts. And we also have to roll out paid leave January 1st. And plus we have regular work. So I know that, all departments work hard, but it's just really a tricky time of the year to be down to just myself and one other human resources generalist. So that would be the basis of my request.
Thanks, Jackie. I'll look for a motion on that.
I'll move that.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Windermere Township shoreline ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. This is really just a formality that we need to do. Minnesota rule states that when a township adopts shoreland regulations, the county board is to confirm that they are at least as strict as the counties in both regulation and administration. And so Windermere Township, it was shoreland ordinance back in March, and then kind of a little bit out of order, but it still needs to happen, requested us to confirm that it does meet those requirements. Our zoning board reviewed it and concurred that it did meet the requirements of being at least as strict as the county's ordinance, and recommended to you all to consider acknowledging it and accepting it as so via resolution.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I do have a question. Does that, if there's an issue, is it completely out of our hands then? We do not have to step in and try to solve some issue that, I mean, it seems like we get drug into some of these issues, no matter if it's our jurisdiction or not.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chair, there's always a potential to be drug into anything on something like this, but I think for the most part, the hope or the idea is that they'll take most of it as specifically with that township. But yeah, I know what you're kind of referring to in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I always have a question where, can I go on with that, Steve? Where if we think it's kind of okay, but the DNR doesn't think it's okay. That's where I get. You know, some of those things that are so, it could go either way, right? And then so
we won't be there. It will be between them and the DNR. We won't be in the middle anymore. Right?
Well,
is that the way I understand it? If
we still have to kind of approve it too, though.
Right, for our, I mean, it sounds like at least the DNR is on board on this one.
Yeah.
We have to approve their thing, but if somebody wants to build something on Sturgeon Lake and they say it's okay. Say that it meets their requirement, what they think it's okay. And then the DNR says, no, it's not okay. We don't have to get in the middle of that then, right?
No, we shouldn't. No.
It would be between Windermere Township and the DNR or Bowser or whoever.
In shoreline, don't we always have to say something too, though? Does it come to us at all anymore? Oh, okay.
Not in townships that have their own DNR approved ordinance
Okay.
that we've acknowledged in this form.
I was just going down a path. It seems like we got stuck in the middle.
Honestly, it says strict as the counties or greater. Theoretically, it should be okay and not drug into some of this stuff.
All right.
Mr. Chair. So in cases, the burden, why it's coming to us is because we need to say it's at least as restrictive. Now, we don't really have an option of saying, hey, this is way too restrictive. That's not on the table, unfortunately. But so we really can't weigh in on that because that can be an issue in some cases.
Right.
It's a case in a lot of cases.
I'm not saying it is in this case, but I'm just saying that can be a case, but we really don't have that option.
Yes, we don't.
No.
I move this resolution. 2025-36.
Didn't we have a motion?
I moved it. I didn't hear a second.
I second it.
Okay. Thanks for doing. I missed it. All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is low potency hemp edibles registration.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. members of the board, and Reese may have to jump in and help me a little bit on this one. But back in the summer of 2024, in August of 2024, Pine County adopted an ordinance that governed cannabis businesses and the retail registration process of them. So that was completely separate of the cannabis zoning piece. It only really focused it on the retail registration of those cannabis businesses. At that time, I think we very intentionally excluded the lower potency hemp edibles, knowing that up to that point, really, that had been kind of a free-for-all, and almost every, everywhere you turned had the restaurants had the beverages, gas stations had it, everybody had it. So we intentionally excluded that, knowing that it was everywhere. However, our friends at the state and OCM have decided that beginning January 1st, any business selling those low potency edibles must be licensed by them and must also secure a retail registration from their local unit of government. So at this time, all of our ordinances completely exclude this low potency hemp edibles. So we have no way to do a registration currently. And that's not going to be an acceptable answer for the state of, we're not doing it. So in chatting with Reese, it seems like it would be best to move forward with just adopting a separate ordinance regarding the low potency hemp products, and set forth a process for the registration of those. I think it could look very similar to like our tobacco licensing that we do, which is a very simple process and straightforward process. I do have a list of items to consider that we would want to consider in outlining that process, and we'll need to do that through an ordinance. And we'll want to move rather quickly on the ordinance, because probably in November, our friends at OCM are going to be coming to us wanting certifications of retail registration. And I've already started getting phone calls from people going through that process of that licensing process and wondering what our process is going to be.
That was gonna be my question. We don't have to notify them, they'll notify us, because they have to get them.
Right, they have to get it.
How many do we have in that? Do we have any idea?
I have no idea.
And how do we know everybody gets the law?
Right, well, the state has been sending communications out to those that are selling it.
So the
And
state knows everybody that's selling it?
they think they do. So it's gonna be part of the process of those businesses obtaining their license from the state that we have this registration.
So it's not really a license, it's just gonna be a.
It's a registration, it is not a license.
It's just like a cigarette.
Yeah, but that's a license, where this is a registration,
Okay.
but it's all,
Same.
How much
piece
work
of
is it
paper.
gonna make for the staff and?
right, I really think, so we are required to do compliance checks. If you're the entity doing the retail registration, we're required to do compliance checks. Yet most, if not all of these businesses either have a tobacco or a liquor license that we're already doing compliance checks for. And
That's
so,
one more thing to look at.
right, it's one more thing to look at in that process. And
Are you thinking minimal fee then? Or-
right, I would think a minimal fee because it's going to be administrative work. Very similar to what we do with our tobacco license is it's, an application process, so
What's that fee? Is
$100.
that minimal in that world?
Probably.
So that is one of the questions that we need to decide is, do we want to charge a fee? And if so, how much? Because that needs to be set through a public hearing. Jurisdiction, do we want to only cover those cities and townships that have delegated their regular cannabis businesses? So that'd be 46 of 47 jurisdictions. Or do we want to be like our tobacco where we just cover everything and it just is what it is?
We're gonna do it, why don't we do them all? That's what I-
Yeah.
Yeah, do we want to look at it like the regular cannabis businesses and put a limit on how many we issue? I think that's kind of hard at this point because they've been allowed to do it right now, and so that gets kind of hard. Do we want to pull in the buffer zones like we have for the cannabis businesses, the 1,000 feet from schools, 500 feet from daycares, et cetera? But those aren't required things that we have to we don't have to pull those things in. It's just looking at the different ordinances.
Go ahead.
Question. So being as this is sort of an ordinance,
It is an ordinance, we need.
yes. Is this okay, and it may be, I don't know about the scope of simplicity. Is this something that between you and the county attorney tackle, or does this have to go through our zoning? Or can we just simply do this, more straightforward?
Right, my hope would be that Reese and I could work together and come up with a draft to present to you through public hearing, and it would be a very simple, straightforward process.
That sounds
I
great.
think we could significantly model, for example, our tobacco ordinance.
So be what we're looking at.
Right, are you okay with really modeling with very little, little requirements for them to get the registration? And then, what fee?
Mr. Chair, my feeling is to model it after our cigarette
As much as we can.
as much as we can. Charge the same amount as we do for a cigarette license. And they're doing for everybody in the county. That's my 3 thoughts right now.
When can we get a draft?
Yeah, so I was just looking at, it's something that Reese and I can start working on. I think we can probably put it together pretty quickly. To have a public hearing at this point, unfortunately, it would have to be that second board meeting in November to get the public hearing notice out. Would be when we'd have that public hearing, but if you would like us to come back to, for example, the November 4th meeting, so you can take a look at it before we get to that public hearing, we could do that.
That would be great for me. Yeah. That'd be perfect. I'll make that a motion. Staff work on that, then we set a public hearing for tentatively for November, whatever the date is, 18th, with hopes of receiving the draft at the 4th.
Need a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Second by Steve. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Carried. Okay. 2024 audit and financial statement.
All right, Kelly Schroeder putting on my county auditor treasurer hat. So I'm gonna move over here. So previously, the end of September, you would have gotten a copy of the financial statements emailed to you. And then today you got your printed copy of them, and then I'm gonna go over a few high points in them. It's, 130-ish page document, so obviously I'm not gonna hit on everything, but really kind of the high points. So the financial statements, they're compiled by county staff and the state auditor. And they include really 4 main sections, which the management and discussion analysis is at the front. And to me, if you're going to read any part of the audit, that's the part to read, because it distills it down to regular terms of what is the overall county picture looking like. And then you move into the next section, which is the basic financial statements, and they are reported on 2 different ways. One on the government-wide, so the county as a whole, and then on the major fund level as well. So you'll see some of those get pulled out. And then we move into the required supplementary information. So that's like when your budget comparison schedules come in. We start to look at some of our liabilities like debt and post-employment benefits and that type of stuff. And then we get into kind of the last section is the other supplementary information, which is we get a lot of those same statements, but for the non-major funds. So we get into all of those little funds that we have. And then there's the schedule of federal awards. So that's kind of a nice document that really goes through all of the federal funds we get and what programs they come from and the dollars. The audit itself is towards the back of the report, pages 119 through 127. That is completed by the state auditor, and they will dig into it a little bit more, but this year we received an unmodified opinion both on our financial statements and our federal awards. So that is the best the best audit opinion you can receive. So just to kind of jump in here a little bit, for the, Matt, are you looking for these? He's looking for something. Matt,
But not looking for.
okay, are you looking for something that you can't
Found
find?
it.
Okay, sounds good. So just to kind of jump in, these slides were taken out of the page 9, out of the management and discussion analysis section. But I appreciate these slides because it shows an overlook of where our revenues and our expenditures are, and I always like to pull the old one. So you can see, obviously, the 2024 one is out of this report, but I like to throw the 2023 one up there so that you can see really the change from year to year. So you can see in 2024, really like our other grants and contributions decreased from 23 to 24, but also like the property taxes, the portion of our revenue brought by property taxes also slightly decreased. But yet that means that we had increases in other areas like the federal charges or fees charges, general revenues, those types of things increased. On the expense side, this breaks it down by function, which I think is typically helpful so that you can see where, what are we spending our money on by function. So you can see the largest portion of the pie is the public safety piece. And then it dwindles down to highways and streets, human services. And kind of, you can see how it goes through all of our different expenses and categorizes them. And see how that changed from year to year. It's like highway, 22% of our expenses, same between 23 and 24. Same with human services. So a lot of those stayed the same. There were just a few little tweaks with where our money was spent between 23 and 24. Our fund balances, so this is something that we talk about a lot throughout the year, and so it's always a little exciting when we finally get our financial statements and get the audited numbers that we can feel really good about. And so I broke this down by our major funds that we talk about a lot. So general fund, road and bridge, health and human services, and the land fund. And then the total all funds, that includes truly all of our funds. So like we have our debt funds and we have our COVID fund and those things. Those aren't major funds, so I don't show them here, but they're included in that total all funds. So you can see what we started 2024 with, the change, so the increase or decrease in that fund, and then where we ended 2024. So you will see that the general fund, road and bridge and land all had slight increases in their fund. They went up a little bit, even though the highway department was still below zero. They are less below zero by the end of 2024. HHS, you do see that their fund balance was reduced slightly. There was some planned spending of reserves in there. And that's something that, we do want to keep an eye on because you don't want to continue to tap your savings account, but, that was planned. When we look at the fund balance, the end of 2024 fund balance, it's always important to remember that some of those dollars aren't available for you to spend on, whatever item it is you want. So like in the general fund, there is $2.2 million that is restricted and committed to very specific uses that we cannot make changes to, that they were state dollars or grant dollars that came for a very specific purpose, or statutory said we could only spend these dollars for this purpose. Assigned dollars are dollars that the county board decided that we wanted to hold aside for something. And so like in the general fund, that's that jail canteen fund, where we're taking the revenues that we make from the canteen and making this extra fund to support the jail. And then that bottom line, like in the general fund, is the one that we talk about a lot, that unrestricted, unassigned fund balance. And so that is really your working dollars. Stop me if you have questions as I continue on here. I feel like I've showed you this slide a lot in the past, but over the last few months as we've talked about the budget, but I wanted to throw it up again because that is the 2024 number is now audited, and we can say with great confidence that the general fund unrestricted balance did jump up pretty nicely in 2024. That is even without, so in past years, some of those years, we intentionally budgeted to put money in the fund balance, where for 2024, that was not done. But yet through some increased revenues, some savings, we were able to add to the unrestricted fund balance pretty decently. And so now that, when you look at 2024, that represents about 27.2% of the expenditures, which falls nicely within the county board policy of 20 to 35%. I always like to show this slide as well. It's interesting because this is only one day. When we look at our cash and investments, obviously our bank account amount changes every business day. Deposits happen, checks clear, whatnot. So on 12/31, we had almost $12,000 or $12 million in the MAGIC fund, and everybody always sees that and kind of chuckles a little bit, but MAGIC is the Minnesota Association of Governments Investing for Counties. And so that is the fund that all of our state dollars just directly go to. So it's like a separate bank account just for those state dollars. We do have some certificates of deposits, about $4.5 million of investments, having locked in some higher interest rates for longer term. Same with federal bonds. We've got about $4 million in that. The general deposits, so that's just our regular operating checking account, how much money was in there on 12/31. And then, of course, our change fund, which is literally the change funds that we have in the office to make change from. So on 12/31, we had almost $23 million in, of cash or investments, but yet not all of that was available for us to pay bills with and things. On the right-hand side, you see that interest earnings, and I just like to give a historical snapshot. You can significantly see, what interest rates have done during that COVID times, but you also see kind of a difference in my management of the county funds. Previously, a lot of our funds were kept in our operating checking account before I took over as auditor. So like you'll see 2018, $158,000 worth of interest earnings. So that was keeping a lot of our funds in our operating checking account, which gets very minimal interest. Where I had the different philosophy of I kept a minimal amount of money in our operating checking account and kept it in either the MAGIC fund or higher interest rate money market accounts that we have. And just transfer money as needed. So each week I get a report of how much the check runs are and know I need to put that money into the checking account to pay those checks next week. So it has been, it's a little more labor intensive because I constantly have to be checking the accounts and things, but we're able to capture a significant amount of more interest revenue doing that. Debt. And on all these slides, I put a note on the bottom of if you wanted to go to the financial statements and see these numbers, what page you go to. So the debt funds, I like to throw these up there. They're on page 47 of the financial statements, but we have the three main debt funds. If you look at page 47 of the financial statements, you'll see those clean water partnership loans listed on there as well. So those are the septic loans that we make. So we get the money from the state. We loan it out to people to fix their septic. The people pay it back to us and then we pay it back to the state. So it's really a pass through. So I don't put that up here just because it's a pass through grant or loan. So, but these are our three bonds. You can see where we began with them, where the balance was on 12/31. Obviously, we've made payments this year. So the current balance just shows after our 2025 payments, what the balances are, what the interest rates are in the payoff year, which we just keep looking at those years and they're getting closer.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, so at the bottom, I just have this, it's a lot of information at the bottom of the slide, but I just like to show it. So our debt is structured so that our payments are pretty level over time. So that's all that I want to show there is that, our debt is structured so our payments don't fluctuate significantly so that our tax levy and the debt part can stay the same. Obviously, you note that, as the years go by, we're paying off more principal and less interest. Budget to actuals, pages 72 to 76. So this just shows budgeted expenditures and then actual expenditures. So some of, the general fund came in really close to what those budgeted expenditures and actual expenditures were. So knowing that, that means that we had some new revenues that came in, and that's how that fund balance increased. So we had, we managed the budget very well in the general fund. Road and bridge, the road and bridge budget is always difficult because that state funding is always a question, the projects are always a question, and so that's always a big difference from year to year of how did those projects work out? Did we end up moving something up? Did we end up not being able to do something? What did we do? So when you look at road and bridge, you see, oh my gosh, we spent $3 million too much, which some of that also is planned spending of our sales tax dollars, our reserves of sales tax. And then also like in the road and bridge fund, we did receive almost $2.4 million of additional state aid that wasn't originally in the budget. And health and human services, I don't know how you could be any closer to budget than that on the expenditure side. So underspent by $3,520. On to the actual audit pieces. So we're on to page 124 of the audit. So this is really where the state auditor says, how did we do? So on our financial statements, they look at, the actual dollars in the financial statements and decided that we received an unmodified opinion, which is the best audit opinion you can get. There are no numbers that are incorrect in here that they found. When you get to the internal control over financial reporting, you'll note that it says that we did have a material weakness. And so what that means is that they did find because it's an internal control over financial reporting. So there is a process that we have internally that could cause a number to be wrong. And so we'll talk about that because there's a finding related to that. So it's not that there was a number wrong because it got fixed, but it could happen, but we've addressed that and had to address that. There was no significant deficiencies, meaning that there was no numbers that were wrong, no non-compliance noted. And then because we received more than $750,000 of federal funds, we have to have a separate single audit, a federal award audit. And so this year they looked, we've got different buckets of money that come in from the federal funds. So they typically will look at certain programs, different ones each year. So the federal programs that were looked at this year was the highway planning and construction, federal dollars, and then Medicaid. And I am so happy to report they found no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies in any of those things. And we received an unmodified opinion on our federal funds. And so that was really exciting to see, especially noting that they had looked at the Medicaid, and that they look at that, they scrutinize that so significantly. I mean, the one year, like we had a finding because there was a date stamp missing. And so I just am very proud of Michelle G and her team they found nothing, which was great. They've been working very hard to make sure that there's processes in place. So I've already said, when you get an audit opinion, you can get several different opinions. We've received unmodified opinion, meaning that the statements are fairly represented in all material respects. And so that is the best audit opinion you can get. So Ian, I had mentioned that they did find that significant or material weakness. And so this explains it. You can find this on pages 124 to 125. And so what happened was there was so the highway department obviously does large projects, and they pay for projects as they get completed. And then they have to request, in certain circumstances, they have to request those reimbursements back from the state for as they get complete, as they pay the bills and the projects get completed. We had a situation where an invoice was paid in January for a 2024 project. So it was paid in January of 25 for a 2024 project. And so it didn't get flagged as a 2024 expense. And so then when we got the reimbursement in from the state, it also didn't get flagged as a 2024 revenue. So that was caught, it was fixed. So our numbers in our statement are correct. And now we have some very clear processes between Melissa, the chief deputy auditor, and Sherry, the office manager in the highway department, on how we are not going to have that happen anymore. And we have figured out the coding we get from the state. We figured out their coding on how to tie it over to the highway department's project numbers too, so that when we get that money into our account, we can look at it and go, okay, that means this project, which was a 2024 project or is a new project. So that audit finding has been addressed and should not come up again. So just general overview, the reliance on property taxes as a source of revenue has continued to decrease. In 2022, it was actually 40%, and then it decreased to 36% in 2023, and then 35% in 2024. There's a very nice increase to the general fund unrestricted balance. That's even without budgeting to add to the fund balance, so that's great to see. And then we've really capitalized on those higher interest rates for our investments and even our operating dollars. And so as we've worked through the 2026 budget process, you've seen that of us inching up those interest revenue projections. Otherwise, that is what I have. Do you guys have questions?
I have a question if I can. The revenues coming in primarily from the recreational land leases, what line is that under? Is that under miscellaneous?
That would be under conservation of natural resources. In the land department, depending on if you're looking at a fund statement. Or if you're looking at like that pie chart, that's the revenue it comes in under.
Yeah, if you don't have it close by, what was the revenues from recreational land leases?
Right, I would have to look that up.
Yeah, okay, I think it was a couple $100, I think.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay,
Mr. Chair. So you do have to formally accept them?
Yeah.
Okay,
I will look for motion to formally accept it.
I'll make that motion.
By Roger Nelson,
I'll second it.
second by Alan. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I would have some discussion. In the report, it says the property tax, the reliance on property taxes dropped. We were dependent 40% in 2022, and now in 2024, we're only getting 35%. And we still have a parcel of land north of parcel 33003900 that does not even have a parcel ID number. So therefore, we have collected zero. We've made no tax revenue on it. The township has made no tax revenue on it. The school districts have made no tax revenue on it. So I think, I don't think this is accurate. So I want to say this report, something was overlooked. I brought it up, I believe, a year ago. I was told there was ownership to this parcel back as recent as 1948. And it, I guess it just sits there at the intersection of Goldeye Lane and County Line Road, Windermere Township.
and if the board would like to direct me to do probably about 10 hours of research on that, I could answer it. But in talking with the highway department, it is road right away and would have zero top taxes.
Adjacent to it is 33007000. Same parcel, which is in private ownership paying taxes. Next to that is another parcel. So there are some good realtors, real estate brokers use comparables.
Is that the one where the road right away?
I don't even know, I don't have a map of the
I
parcel.
don't have.
I think that's bearing on, do we want to approve the audit? That's.
Yeah,
That's all the discussion I have at this time with the audit.
I think that we can deal with that separate sometime. All right. All in favor?
I
Motion carried.
I oppose,
One
oppose the audit.
yes,
opposed.
inaccurate from what I see.
Okay, third quarter budget report.
Sure. So,
Do that from here.
yeah, I'll do that from here because this is something that Dave used to do, so I'll stay here.
Yeah.
So you have the same charts that Dave has previously provided for. They were in the packet attached to my request, and so there's 4 different charts that we provide. The first one just shows revenue expenditures for each major fund. So we just look at the general fund, HHS, and road and bridge, and then we give a total for all the funds. Expenditures for all of the major funds are below 75%. Overall, the county expenditures are at 83%, and we are at 75% of the year, so that's good news. The overall county expenditures being at 83% is not concerning to me. It's not trending above where it should be because we make those large debt payments early in the year. And so that's why that's reflected that way. And the road and bridge for the revenue shows significantly higher than budget. You'll notice that they're at 146% of their revenue for the year already. And that is because just recently we received the State Highway 123 turnback funds of almost $5.4 million. So that is why that looks so out of skew at, they've received over 100% of revenue significantly. So that is the chart number 1. Chart number 2 looks at the revenue by department in the general fund. And so the bars show for 2025 only through third quarter. And then the black line is a 5-year average over the last 5 years, just to kind of give you an idea. Are we tracking kind of about where we have in the past? And so the jail is overperforming compared to previous years. You'll notice that their bar is well over 100%, compared to in previous years, they were at about 100%. And that is just because they've had some good boarding revenue that was not budgeted for. And so that's great to see. Otherwise, I think that's probably about it for chart number 2. Chart number 3 looks at expenditures because chart number 2 was only the revenue side. Chart number 3 is the expenditure side. So same deal. The bar graph shows for 2025. The line shows the 5-year average, just so you can kind of compare of are we on track where we have been in the past, and tracking at or below 75%, except for IT administrator and recorder. The IT is doing as expected at just 77% of the expenditures, but a lot of their service contracts are paid in whole early in the year, so that has continued to trend high. It catches up throughout the rest of the year. The administrator budget is also at 77% due per spent. The payout from the previous administrator's time off, so that is in policy how that's done, and so the expenditures are up a little bit higher than planned at this point in the year because of that. And the recorder is doing as expected because we pay for those things out of the fund balance, out of the recorder compliance fund balance. So like our aerials and our different maintenance contracts and things we pay for out of that. And so that is why that is showing. I did want to point out the court security expenses. So they've spent less than 75% at the 75% of the year. But you might look at it and go, holy cow, but compared to the last 5 years, they've spent a lot. Because at this point in the year, normally they're only at about 40% spent. But that is because the 5-year average includes those years where we didn't really have court security because most court was online.
Does the manning of front desk fall into that too?
Right, so our total expenses are higher than they previously were, but this just looks at a percentage of being spent. And so in the past, we were budgeting thinking we were going to be having court and we weren't.
Oh,
Where now we're on track of, we budgeted thinking we were going to have court and have a front desk person, and we are. And then chart number 4 just digs a little bit more into the HHS by major division. So it just shows income maintenance of social services and public health. And then the total of the whole fund, and everything there is as expected. You'll notice the income you might think is lagging a little bit, but that's because most of their income is received on a quarterly basis. So the third quarter income has not been received yet, when you look at this chart. And so that's why that's trending behind.
Very good. We don't approve that. do we?
No,
That's
Just
That's
information.
just information. All right, we'll move on to commissioner updates. We already had Health and Human Services Committee. We can knock that off. Northeast Minnesota Area Transportation.
Yeah, it was a somewhat boring meeting, but they gave a lot of reports about how projects had been progressing. They awarded out some grants. None of them came to Pine County because we didn't have any projects going on, and these were for the completion of some projects. So they're kind of wrapping up the construction year, of course, shortly. So
Okay,
that was about it.
Soil and Water Conservation District.
I did not attend.
Do you want me to go to those, JJ, if they're?
Absolutely.
I'll move on to Kettle River. There was one project, it's up in Carlton County, and it's a hanging horn stormwater project going in the lake, and that's kind of head of the Kettle River. And so that project's going to happen. But the main thing at the end came up again with making interest on the tranche of money that comes from Bowser or wherever it's, and the chair keeps pushing for that. So I don't know how I'm going to respond. You know, if they keep pushing, we don't want to do it. How do you guys feel about it? Just say, hey, somebody else can handle that. You know, another county wants to do it or whatever. Do you? Because Kelly, we don't make any money, do we?
Well, I mean, it's just included in all of our accounts. So yes, I account for it separately in our accounting system, but in our bank accounts, it's just mixed in. And we have expenses that are not reimbursed, like our financial statement, and like during our audit, we were audited on those funds, and there's things that we can't get reimbursed for. So that is, you know, what helps pay for us administering those funds.
I don't
The
know
interest.
if it's gonna get to that point, but you know, they keep pushing because
Right.
somebody else. So we'll see what happens. That's all. So,
All right.
all right. Move on to. Arrowhead Transit.
Arrowhead Transit, we met, the number I look at is the dial-a-ride rides, and really Pine City is the big user, in the dial-a-ride system. Although they do some inter-county, you know, bus trips between Sandstone.
It must,
and
yeah,
Pine
it must
City.
work. Every time I'm on the freeway, I see one of their
Yeah.
buses going.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
If you remember what happened years ago, Faze used to have their own vans that transported people. And when Tim Smutzer was the CEO of Faze, he said, you know, let's turn that transportation over to Arrowhead, because we are not a transportation company. And so that involves a lot of vans, there are a lot of little buses running around doing their transportation, which helps the whole system. It helped us be able to expand some of our dial-a-ride. They're still trying to get dial-a-ride reinitiated in Sandstone, and hopefully they can get that going here sometime in the near future. But it goes 7 days a week in Pine City. It's pretty amazing. It's just, I don't know, if you happen to live close enough to the outskirts of Pine City, works great.
Okay. Well, Josh is not here for that one, so we'll move on to Central Minnesota Jobs and Training.
I went to that meeting, which consisted mostly of Larson Allen. And, they always do a good job of doing the audit and there were some findings because if you remember, there was a change in leadership and unwinding of some of the projects they were doing. And so, they believe the auditor and the administrative staff believe they have all of the remedies in place. But what is it, 3 years now? They get double scrutiny on everything they do because they're all federally funded grants basically that they operate on. So there was no money stolen. There was just some accounting errors, I would guess, where they used money from one project to fund another project. And
Shuffle.
yeah, they I don't quite understand it all. I wasn't on the board at that time, but they seem to be back on track now.
You might as well keep going. East Central Solid Waste.
East Central Solid Waste, you guys that own equipment will appreciate this story. They have this bowl mag, the big thing that goes over the top of the garbage that crushes it down and packs it down. It's a $1.2 million machine. We've got 6,000 hours on it. Thank goodness, since the day they bought the machine, Bomag has done all the service, including oil changes. They were running it about a month ago. All of a sudden, there was a sudden loss in oil pressure. The guy shut it down right away. The damage was done. The engine was ruined. The oil filter had spun itself off the engine and lost all its oil. So Bomag, since they'd been doing the service, it was still under warranty, all that stuff, they ended up putting I don't even know how many liter engine. It's a huge Cummins engine, 600 and some horsepower. So they did it. So anyway, costlier for somebody.
Okay. East Central Regional Library.
Okay, library, not a lot new to report other than, we're probably, we did pass a budget that was a 0% increase budget, overall, for the library system. And as part of that, there would be a reduction in staffing hours. That was gonna be the result of that budget, of which counties could, or cities or municipalities, whatever, could buy back some of those hours. So they kind of come out with what is that gonna look like for each county? And, the effect in Pine County, it's not fully settled yet, but it may vary between, I think it's 1 to 5 or 6 hours on a weekly basis reduction at some of the branches in Pine County, just to make that budget work. And so we just need to be aware and work, work through that. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that.
Oh, they're gonna post a public notice then or something or put it on
Yes,
the door.
they will. They'll be, what their change, how they're gonna exactly work that out, what days or, that's yet to be determined, but they've kind of come out with the numbers, so. We'll see how that goes.
You done there? That's,
Yeah.
thanks, Rick. Greater Minnesota
I-
Parks. and-
That meeting was at the same time
Oh,
as the Indian Affairs meeting, and I went to the Indian Affairs meeting.
Oh, do
And so.
report on that.
Yes, I will. It was, I don't know that any earth shattering stuff comes out of those meetings, but I think it's a great opportunity for counties that have tribes in them to sit down with the tribal leaders. Tribal leaders were all there, including Virgil from Mille Lacs. And, there's some great leaders that Bobby Descharme, if you remember him.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
County commissioner from Cook County. Then he got elected to be the tribal chief of their band. And now he's been appointed to be the head of the Indian Affairs Council in the state of Minnesota. So he's a really neat guy. And I've enjoyed getting to know him. You know, he's a hard worker. I remember him telling a story about, you know, when he was younger, he drove a semi every day from Grand Marais to Minneapolis and back to Grand Marais, delivered for Heg, what is it, Heg Sawmill, delivered sod lumber to the Twin Cities every day, 6 days a week. But it's something we'll continue to work on. We have, because of their personnel changes, we have struggled trying to renew our monthly meetings with our tribe. And we are working on that, but
That was always good to have that. open
yeah,
line of communication.
it was good, and I talked to Virgil about it, and so we'll get something going again.
Okay. Arrowhead, I did not make that meeting. I was actually gone out of town, so. AMC District 1.
Go ahead.
So I want to talk.
Yeah, so that was the last week. Steve and I and Kelly were, and Terry Fawcett were there for that meeting. Here's maybe my takeaway. When you're with other commissioners in our region and they ask questions about, you know, what are you doing in this area? What are you doing in that area? It's really informative to hear what other counties are doing or not doing. And of course, we talked about levy, where their levy is and how they determine that, negotiations. You know, it's always nice to know those sort of things. So I saw that as very informative and valuable. They pack in a lot in that time. And then the presentations by our AMC group, you know, talking about, you know, that, you know, what their priorities are as a group. And we actually got to be a part of determining what are our priorities going to be this next year. What are we going to challenge? And then of course they give updates on what all they're working on legislatively on our behalf, and mostly at the state, but also the federal implications. You know, not weighing in, but just saying this is what's going to happen, or this is what is happening next year. So some of those sort of things. So again, valuable.
Hey, we did, like Roger said, get a chance to vote on
Priorities.
what our priorities
Yeah.
were. We got,
Ought to come on.
well, the one I remember because it came out of the Transportation Committee is our only priority legislatively in the Transportation Committee is bonding, because those bonding bills are so important to our county road project. And we've seen it happen where if we don't get bonding, the bridge bonding money, for instance, for a project we're working on, it sets our whole road program back like a whole year. Sometimes, you know, bridges are unbelievably expensive. And so,
Anybody have any others?
Hey, Kelly, do you have anything you wanted to add?
And so,
Oh. Anybody have any others?
I have another, Mr. Chair. October 15th, I was at the Soil and Water Building. I attended I guess, what would you, Kelly, appreciate the invite. What was it? Just a
TEP meeting.
actual TEP meeting. And that's getting worked on by, who was all present? You were there, I was there, Bowser, Soil and Water, an independent person for wetland delineations and a homeowner, and a mayor of a city I represent. And again, I just want to thank Kelly for the invite, and just remind you again that I do want to be included on the email and calendar of those I've requested numerous times.
when those are gonna take place and where. So just make sure I'm on the calendar for that for the future. Thank you.
I guess I would request that, does the board want to direct us to do that?
What, for temp meetings?
Right,
Why are we at that meeting?
because JJ would like to request to be on those notifications.
Just a notification of when they're happening, where they're happening.
What-
Is that a public meeting? I'm just curious.
No, it's a
I don't think
it's a
that-
meeting of findings, but I don't know what would our role, commissioner's role be
We
there?
have no role.
We don't have a role there.
I've been asked for this one especially to be present anyway. And I would just like to be
But that's from a
Present.
constituent?
correct.
Yeah,
And a city. I was just curious as to why it's not considered a public meeting then? I mean, if there's not a quorum,
Right, there's not a quorum, it's a technical panel.
I think if,
I
I
cannot-
wouldn't expect our administrator to put on my behalf, to put on a calendar of a meeting that I would go to in the city of Pine City, for instance.
right, and I guess I'm not concerned with your wants. I was just making a request of my wants. I would like to be just added, just my name. When you notify all the other entities, the soil and water, the Bowser, our county employees. I would just like to know what's going on in relation to,
Well, in water meeting, you would probably know that was happening.
not necessarily, no.
No,
I sat on a soil and water board for 8 years. I was a liaison for one whole term, 4 years. It's not happening. I guess if you're turning on my request just to be on a simple calendar notification, that's what you're doing. I would just like to know when those are going to take place. And if I can't, again, I thank you for calling and letting me know.
That was on behalf of the homeowner because he didn't have his phone with.
Do I make a motion, a formal board motion that I would like to be put on those? I could look for a second. And then if you go to vote,
I'm trying to understand the ramifications here. If it's a meeting that is not a county meeting.
yeah, so are you gonna exercise county authority there and?
I can't, can I? I mean, as one person?
No,
No,
you're just there as an observer.
correct.
So I would guess
Wouldn't guess.
that would be by
Invitation,
invitation of the landowner affected or the city or I don't know.
Well, I don't need an answer today, like I said.
I'm just trying to think how it relates in the grand scheme of
You
things.
can. Somebody can get back to me. I think it would be just as easy as adding my name with everybody else's names.
what I worry about is, would we have an exposure there to get caught up in something too? As a board, if we have a board member there. I don't know that. You know, if we make a motion formally do that, then that would include exposure of us, right? If there's a problem.
I don't know.
So I don't want to do that, because we don't know what's gonna happen at those meetings, you know? And we don't belong there at that meeting unless you're invited. That's a good question.
Yeah, like I said, if you can't provide an answer today, you can get back to me, whomever that would be. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna go to closed meeting. We'll pop over.
Take them.
Mr.
Recess.
Chair, just before we go there.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
On our upcoming meetings, I'm just curious, we've got a meeting tomorrow night, the school one,
Yeah,
and this coming up this Saturday, township office. Can I just get who's going to be attending those? That's what I'm curious about.
I'm planning on going to both.
Who's gonna be there? I'm gonna be out.
You're gonna be,
And I will be on Wednesday night and it's to be determined on.
okay, got it. JJ, are you gonna be to any of those?
I don't think so, no. My alternate will have to.
I'm planning on it.
Okay, that's all I want.
Thank you, Roger.
Everybody's got their meetings, look at your meetings. All right, so we'll recess the board meeting. And we'll need a motion to go into closed meeting, and I can make that motion. I move to close this meeting as provided by Minnesota statute 13D.03 to consider strategy for labor negotiations, including negotiation strategies and development and discussion, and review labor negotiation proposals pursuant to Minnesota statute 179A.01 to 179A.25. I'll look for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed?
5-minute recess.
Yesterday or day before. He sent some right to the city at 17.
Really?
Instead of, he doesn't have. Right.
Are we good? Okay. We came out of recess and we're back into general board meeting, and Pine County Board meeting is adjourned.